Lighthouse says the police are mindless drones, they'll obey. I think that's unfair. I think our opponent knows that if they push the police to the point that they don't obey, that will spread. I think they are very careful not to push it too far, which is why the police seem to always obey. Don't forget, our enemy could just kill Trump. I mean, they could just bomb one of his events. They could just bomb one of his events. They could just send, like, they could just kill all the major leaders of the conservative movement. They could just declare
blame it on someone else. Yeah.
Well, I mean, regardless, they could just declare we are now in charge. Like they have the technically, theoretically, they have the power to just do anything they want, pretty much. But they know that by doing so, they will sacrifice their legitimacy, their perceived legitimacy. And that's the only thing keeping the normies in check. If the normies are no longer in check, if the normies start thinking these people are evil, they've taken our government, well, I mean, the strategy of our enemy for the entire time has been persuading the normies that it's business as usual, when it's not. Now, pursuant to the conversation with Scrump, I'm not saying that a uncoordinated mob of idiots are going to overthrow a corrupt government. But what I'm saying is that if you have the support of the people, you as a small group can achieve a lot. And our opponent is very, very afraid of the vast majority of normies realizing this pantomime show between the left and the right, where both sides have been trying to convince the majority that they're not the evil ones. Oh, the whole time the left were in fact the evil ones. They were in fact lying. And now, say, 75% of the public oppose the Democrats. And at that point, and oppose them really strong and believe they should disappear and believe the swamp is real and it's all corruption in DC. At that point, it's not difficult for any number of relatively small, possibly militia groups, to enact that will. Our opponent is deathly terrified of the power of the majority, as clearly evidenced by their actions, either through democracy or through, less abstractly, public will. So they are not willing to push things too far. They want to maintain that perceived legitimacy. As I say, their entire strategy has been to infiltrate the halls of power and replace the relatively good people that were in there before, or at least the amicable people, the normal people of the nation that were in there before, with people who will sabotage the nation. It doesn't rely on total domination by warfare, because that would never work against the US. It only works if they corrupt the structures from inside, and for that they need to maintain the perceived legitimacy. So don't put too little faith in the police officers. They may surprise you yet, especially if our opponent pushes a little bit too far, but they're very wily, our opponent. They will be careful not to push too far.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same shit everywhere. Like, not just in America. I remember, like, I was telling you were here as well, with the majority of people voting on the referendum, even though the polling and everything prior was the exact opposite.
Yes.
And then our Taoiseach and like a bunch of other high level people in power all resigned.
Yeah.
Right after.
Yeah.
Just running away.
Mm-hmm. Leftist meme here from Warner. Yeah, indeed. And I was going to say, second, sorry. Yeah, Pumat says individual police can be good, the force less so. And the field says those are the same police that purged all of the principled officers during COVID. I wouldn't say all, but yes, that's something that they attempted to do. The thing is that, yes, the collective, because of the managerial classes, which are often not taken from the, not promoted internally, they hire managers externally. The collective is worse, yes, than the individuals on the ground. But there's no way that you can get away from the kind of person who wants to be a police officer, the kind of person who wants to use their own physical body as their way to make money, skews conservative. And no matter how much worse they've made it towards they're all just bullies and they're not principled at all, no matter how much they've skewed it in that direction, it's still going to be slightly more conservative on the ground. And those are the people that you need to actually enforce this stuff.
Well, isn't that why one of them, I know they were trying to bring this into England, where before a lot of people, when they're joining the force, they're able to just kind of, the requirements are low enough, and then they join, and then they get they get given certain tasks or abilities to pass through to be able to allow them to hold, like, let's say a taser or whatever.
Mm,
They go through each course. But they were trying to change that to be it so that people can just go through these new university courses that they were trying to bring in for specific police officers, where instead of going like on the ground and working your way up and actually dealing with veteran police officers, you would go through the university system that they have implemented, and you can just jump the ranks, and then be put in a very high position through the university, even if you have never worked as a police officer on the streets.
mm,
They were trying to push that through. And I think that is just another way of trying to get at least the new police officers under their like control through education. What with it being like telling them woke nonsense, or like you
mm,
can't do this, or these are the new policies,
mm.
instead of actually learning from the old proper veteran police officers that know exactly what they're doing and actually try
Yes.
and be good people. They
Promoting
don't want
internally.
them learn. Yeah, yeah. They don't want them learning actual useful skills and
Yeah.
being good officers by
Yeah.
learning from those. They want them going through the education system and then learning what they want them to do for the new
Yeah.
generation, quote unquote.
Yeah.
It's very telling,
Promoting
all over.
internally would allow the lessons of reality learned by the empiricism of those who have actually been on the street to reflect into the policy of the organization. And our opponent can't have that. So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly as you say, they promote from
yeah.
external sources, from pencil pushers and bureaucrats and ideologues. And that's
Yeah,
the cause of
I
the
think
issues in the UK police. I'm sure the US police, and probably all, and many other institutions as well.
I do think why they're doing that though is because a lot of actual people that are going on and being a police officer do get radicalized by the realities that they're dealing with. Like if they're on the street
Yes.
and they're constantly dealing with, let's just say, black people trying to kill them every single second of the day, they're going
A
to be disillusioned, right?
little
So a
bit.
lot of yeah, so what I think they're doing is a lot of these new quote unquote recruits are like plants, you could say. They can easily plant somebody in that university, have them jump ranks, and then not even be on the street dealing with it, and they can just
Mm,
go up into that position of power and control it from within without dealing with that kind of side of things, actually not policing.
mm,
It's just another way to jump in on the political side of getting what they want, because it's
mm.
all corrupt. It's all corrupt. It's just another avenue.
So
Education is just completely all around everywhere now.
So Lighthouse says, if the mystical principled officer existed, the lockdowns would be a very different story, amongst other tyrannical events that have and are occurring. Don't get me wrong, man. I totally get where you're coming from, but I think you're taking it just a little bit too far. The lockdowns were a incredible victory, propaganda-wise, for our opponent. They had to secure that narrative so strongly to get what happened to happen. The like, bear in mind, it's expensive for them to manipulate the public to that extent, and I don't know if they've put in the resources that are needed to manipulate US New York police officers to the extent that they are willing to just take Trump's property over bullshit. Maybe they are. Maybe like, what I'm saying here is not they will prevent it. Just it's possible. I wonder. I'm curious if they will. I don't put it at a high probability because, of course, a lot of police officers are in there not because they are principled conservatives, but because they're bullies. I
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that. And that may
Mm-hmm.
even be most, especially in New York, it's likely to be most of them, but it's certainly not all of them. And I do wonder if there will be any resistance. And
Hey,
it's more
never
chance of there
trust
being resistance from
policemen.
them than from Letitia James, for example.
Hey, maybe I'm speaking from like a biased perspective, but from my point of view, most police officers, I don't trust them. Man.
Understandable.
Don't
Yeah.
trust them.
Yeah.
Uh, but it is a rough job. I do have a lot of respect for police, but it's just a shame that there's so much corruption.
I have great respect for police in principle. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
in principle, I think a lot of good officers get nowadays get suppressed or kicked out,
Yeah.
or they literally just can't do anything because they're either like their superiors won't allow them, or they'll just immediately lose their job.
Mm,
I was disillusioned a lot of the time though during COVID with how many just like bent over and got that injection just to keep their
Yeah.
jobs. But that's not just police exclusive. There was a lot of people that
Yeah.
fell into that category.
As I said, it
But
was a
specifically
colossal
with them,
propaganda victory for our opponent. They really got in deep there, but it was the first time they tried something like
yeah.
that. It might not go so well next time.
They lost, yeah, and I mean, as we're seeing, they shot themselves in the foot a lot of places because there was a lot of good police officers and people that just refused and left, and then we're seeing now, a few years later, that now that those people are gone and things have opened up, they're really struggling because they don't have the manpower.
Mm,
Because they cut half of their forces by removing them for not having a COVID jab, which is so
yeah.
stupid.
The COVID the jabs thing. I think possibly the main reason for that was to try and wipe out anyone principled, like anyone suspicious,
Yeah,
anyone
yeah.
skeptical from
If they
any
don't
organization to
comply, yeah,
power.
any that is not complying with the new regime,
Yeah,
if they're not getting the vaccine, we'll know they're not complying.
like
Get them out.
our opponent's
Easiest way.
strategies are exactly what you should expect if they're all psychopaths.
Well, yeah, and also if you just notice how the ones that were pushing it the most also never got the vaccines themselves or their kids vaccinated, but
Some of
everyone
them,
else had to.
some of them we saw them getting injected, but of course we have no idea what they were injected
Yeah, yeah,
with. Yeah,
like our Taoiseach who quote unquote got injected, right? But then somebody zoomed in on the needle and the needle had a cap on it.
interesting.
Yeah,
Mm.
I was like, first of all, how could you ever make such a massive mistake on this
Yeah, that
propaganda
is odd.
picture?
That is odd.
It's all of it so
I wonder,
stupid.
uh, uh, not for that because if there really was a cap on it, that's pretty bad. But some of them, like Biden, was shown
Yeah,
getting an injection of a transparent liquid. There's a lot of
yeah. I
transparent.
mean,
I don't know if you know this, chat, but there's quite a lot of transparent liquids out there. It could be
yeah,
water. Like there's no
like
reason to verify.
water.
There's no way
Yeah,
to verify it. Yeah. As long as it
yeah.
wasn't air,
Again.
because that's fatal. In case you have a needle, chat, never inject yourself with air. That's fatal.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, as,
You know,
as, as Zedman says, saline solution, it could have just been water.
saline. Yeah.
Water would have been safe, I think. Water was safe to inject.
What Well, also there wasn't a there was all many of these. Well, when they came out, the people working in the Pfizer, for instance, all of like the ones that were making the vaccines, many of them working there did not get vaccinated. The ones that were making it,
Yeah,
and
indeed.
that's like documented. Like they've said that most of them did not or were exempt from it.
Indeed.
So it's like the people making this supposed life-saving vaccine aren't getting vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
There are many of the elite that did not get vaccinated or their children vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them claimed or like did a whole public event showing that they quote unquote did get vaccinated. Most of them you can't trust. A lot of them, there were many pictures where it's like that. As I said, Taoiseach wasn't even getting injected, and that he wasn't the only one I saw with that. Like there were many where it was like it wasn't even piercing someone or like made it look like it was behind the arm and not in the arm. Like there was all these weird kind of pictures going about when they were really pushing the propaganda stuff,
Mm.
and it's actually very hard to find them now because it looks like a lot of have gone back and tried to scrub most of the COVID shit that was going on during
Civilization
that.
scale gaslighting. Yeah.
Yeah, so many articles I remember and stories reading back when it was going on. I go back and I look for, and they're just all
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Yep.
So many of them.
Archival is our friend, Chad.